Hello, welcome to Miranda's Wellness and welcome to my very first episode of the Happy Healthy Pregnancy series. My name is Miranda Partridge. I'm a nutritional medicine practitioner and I personally am 31 weeks pregnant. So I thought that because it's kind of on my brain constantly, that doing something like this would be a really fun, good idea, give you guys a lot of tips from a natural medicine perspective and also some expert advice that you can, use straight away. So today we're going to talk about insomnia. Now, I personally like to think of myself as a bit of a veteran with insomnia because I have had it really quite bad several times in my life. So the first time I had it, I was in year 12, so my final year of high school, and I got it really bad. I really would lie awake for hours, just absolutely hours. And eventually, I think I did try just some supermarket herbal supplement that one of my teachers suggested, and I just used that, and also realized that having cheap version of Coca-Cola in the evenings was basically the issue with me there. But then again, I was in my third year of uni and I had a very hard year. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I also had insomnia. And when I had that, I would lie in bed till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it took me a couple of months to get over that insomnia, and I worked very, very hard on it. Every now and then when I'm stressed, my insomnia flares up, and my insomnia has flared up during pregnancy, but I see it as such a common symptom, just in people in general, but definitely during pregnancy. So I thought that the first episode would probably be best to talk about something that I honestly could talk about this for a really long time. I help my clients with this all the time because it is one of those things that, yes, it takes habits and it takes work, but realistically the work isn't that hard, and it's kind of an intuitive thing to work on as well, and I find it really, really effective to be able to do this most of the time without the use of supplements or anything expensive. It's a very cost-effective thing to work on. So for starters, why does insomnia happen during pregnancy? There's no definitive science as to why. I personally would suggest that it could be, because of the higher stress, not necessarily emotional stress, but there's a lot of things changing in your body, and it's just a lot to adjust to, so that in itself can be quite stressful. But at the same time, like, you're so excited and you're thinking about the baby and what life's going to be like and all of the things that you want to make sure that you have in place before the baby comes, and things you want to do before the baby comes, and whether or not you're going to do a gender reveal or all of those sort of things, baby shower. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot going on in such a short period of time. So I'd say definitely the high stress can have something to do with it. It's also really common to get a bit of discomfort. So you've got a lot of elastin floating around in your body, which is a hormone that basically makes you a lot more flexible, allows your pelvis to expand, and so you can get lower back pain, pelvis pain, pubic bone pain, and especially if you're not somebody who is used to sleeping on your side, it can become quite uncomfortable. Waking up in the middle of the night, just I know if I sleep on my left side, I get a little bit sorer than if I sleep on my right. You're kind of supposed to sleep on your left. It's a little bit frustrating like that. So certain things like that, just needing to pee in the middle of the night as well. Hopefully you don't need to do that more than once. Or getting cramps. A lot of people get leg cramps. I've been getting calf cramps lately. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why you can wake up. Even the baby kicking sometimes could possibly wake you up in the middle of the night because you're lying still, so it's common for the baby to be awake. The reason why stress is linked to our sleep cycle is because there's two hormones involved in our sleep cycle, melatonin and cortisol. Now, cortisol is our stress hormone. It is a very important hormone to have, but when it's really elevated, it can actually suppress melatonin, which is our sleep hormone. The two of them work together in order for us to fall asleep and wake up in the morning in our natural circadian rhythm. So at night, that's when your melatonin should be at its highest and cortisol should be at its lowest. And then in the morning, when we're waking up, cortisol should be at its highest and melatonin should be at its lowest, because the cortisol is what wakes us up in the morning and melatonin is what puts us to sleep at night. So that's just a very basic overview of how those hormones work, but I think it's really important to have that understanding. Managing insomnia is all about working with those natural hormones that the body creates and produces, and basically giving your body the best chance that you possibly can. For starters, what we really want to do is make sure that we're fueling the body, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but there are some minerals, some vitamins, and an amino acid, which is a type of protein, that actually help us to create our melatonin, which is what we want to make sure we're getting plenty of. So things like magnesium, which everyone is very familiar with but these days, tryptophan, zinc, folate, B6, and your B vitamins in general. And then of course we want to do what we can to support your stress systems as well. So things like your vitamin C and zinc are going to be really crucial as well. And you don't have to be supplementing these nutrients in order to get their effect. You can easily help your body by making sure you're getting them in your food. So we will be talking about those in a moment. But quickly I will say there is one supplement that you can get over the counter if you talk to a pharmacist or a naturopath or nutritionist like me, if you go to a health food store or a pharmacy and speak to them. So it's called Bioceuticals Ultra Muscles Night. That's what it looks like. A lot of people are very familiar with this supplement, which is kind of why I'm happy to just let you know about it. The thing I like about it is that it has no stimulants in it whatsoever. There's no B vitamins in it, and it actually has sour cherry in it. And sour cherry has natural levels of melatonin, so that you can actually eat melatonin by having them in that supplement. But at the same time, you can actually have sour cherry juice before you go to bed in order to help just boost up your melatonin levels and help you go to sleep at night. So when it comes to insomnia, we want to tackle it from two different perspectives. First of all, we want to do what we can to prevent it. So no matter what stage you are in pregnancy, all of this stuff will be healthy for you, from a whole bunch of different perspectives, but from a preventing insomnia perspective, it will definitely help. And if you are suffering from insomnia, it will also help you at the same time. And then I'm also going to give you a few tips to help you in the moment when you are lying awake, wide freaking awake in the middle of the night and you cannot sleep. I'll give you a few of my tips for that as well, because I know that as much as the preventative things are very helpful, at the same time, like when you are lying there just willing yourself to go to sleep, you need stuff that you can do in the moment to help you. So we're going to talk about that as well. The prevention, like I said, it's all about enhancing that melatonin and decreasing cortisol. It gives it a nice holistic viewpoint because you're kind of tackling it from a few different areas, and they all work together really well to give you the best outcome. For starters, probably one of the most obvious ones for a lot of people is avoiding stimulants. Now, like I said, when I was an 18-year-old, I was drinking a lot of soft drinks, like cola-based soft drinks, which are high in caffeine, and I was drinking them, with dinner and after dinner, and didn't realize how stimulating they possibly could be. And a lot of women, when they're pregnant, feel really tired and use coffee and tea to get them through their day. And so you kind of don't realize that stimulating effect can actually raise your cortisol levels a lot. So even if you weren't stressed, your cortisol levels would rise just from having that caffeine. We want to avoid caffeine at least after 2 p.m. With pregnancy in general, you don't want to be having more than 1 shot of coffee per day anyway, because that's the recommendation. It's not necessarily that great for the baby, and to be honest, I don't like to see people drinking more than that in general, let alone during pregnancy. But other sources of caffeine can include green tea and black tea. A little bit of green tea and a little bit of black tea is great as well, especially green tea, but you just want to have a couple of cups of those, and again, limit them. When you get to 2 p.m, just stop and have some herbal tea instead, or seek out a different sort of beverage. Eating well and eating regularly are really key in helping to prevent insomnia and just being generally healthy in pregnancy. Now, when I say eating well, I mean those things that are good for you. It's not that hard really when you sit down and think about it to understand what you need to eat. You know that eating vegetables is a really good idea. And obviously, green leafy vegetables are one of those ones you want to get a lot of. I always recommend a minimum of 5 serves of vegetables per day. That is our Australian guidelines as well, but minimum 5 serves. That should not be your maximum goal for the day. And I like to have 2 of those serves to be green leafy vegetables. By doing that, you're going to get those B vitamins and folate and magnesium that I talked about, as far as promoting melatonin and reducing your cortisol. And especially when those vegetables are fresh and raw, you're going to be getting in vitamin C as well, which is always a really good benefit. Having regular protein is really important. Like I said, tryptophan is needed in order to create melatonin. Tryptophan is an amino acid, which basically means it's a small particle in a large chain of protein. It's required to make serotonin, which is known as our happiness hormone, which then gets created into melatonin, our sleep hormone. Things like chicken and turkey, there are a few vegan and vegetarian options that escape me right now, but there are plenty of options for getting enough protein in. And just protein in general, I always recommend whenever you're feeling stressed, anxious, depressed, or have insomnia, because getting that regular protein, it just fuels your neurotransmitters, which are those brain chemicals that we want to make sure are in a nice balance. And they also help us to balance out our blood sugar levels, which is really important because that reduces cortisol. It stops us being so stimulated, because again, sugar is a stimulant that you should definitely be lowering. And I know it is hard in pregnancy. I am not saying that I avoid sugar altogether, but just be mindful of the sugar that you are consuming, and make sure that you're getting protein with every meal. The amount you want is about palm size amount in every meal, and that can be meat, it can be nuts, it can be seeds, it can be legumes. I don't really mind as long as you're getting it regularly. Now, like I just spoke about, lowering sugar is really, really important. It's something like 5 to 9 teaspoons a day is the recommendation from the World Health Organization, and that includes things like sugar from fruits. So when you're thinking about sugar, especially, I find it a lot easier during summer because all you want to do is have fresh fruit. But if you're thinking about your sugar content, you just want to make sure you're getting it from real food sources rather than sugary stuff all the time. It's okay to have a treat every now and then, especially if you're going to have it mindfully and not make yourself feel guilty about it. But you don't want to be having tubs of ice cream every single night, because that's not going to be healthy for you, it's not going to be healthy for the baby, and it's definitely not going to help your insomnia whatsoever. Like I said, sugar is a stimulant, so again, it's something that you want to avoid in the second half of the day. If you are going to have sugar or chocolate, there is a little bit of caffeine in chocolate. Have small amounts, have dark chocolate, and choose to have it earlier in the day, and just try to be mindful. But again, don't make yourself feel guilty if you do have it. Embrace it. Make sure that you eat a more balanced meal afterwards. Even if it's the last thing that you eat, have a really nice balanced breakfast in the morning. Good fats are also really, really important when you're pregnant, not only for the development of the baby's brain, but also for the functioning of your own brain. Now, insomnia, it's, all of your sleep patterns are regulated by the brain. So you want to make sure that your brain is getting supported as best as possible. Now, the fats that I usually recommend in pregnancy are things like really high quality fish oils, so making sure that you're eating them in your diet, but if you need to supplement, do that too. If you can't because you're allergic or you are vegan, vegetarian, getting things like chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, all really nice vegan sources of omega-3. You're going to need a higher volume than you would if you were eating fish, but getting those in your diet in general, whether or not you're vegan, vegetarian, or a meat eater, are all going to be really helpful. They also really help to reduce any inflammation that's going on in the body. And inflammation is a source of cortisol. So we want to make sure that we are fueling our body to reduce that cortisol as much as possible. And inflammation is a huge, huge part of that. Things like your stimulants and your sugar will actually worsen inflammation, so do keep that in mind as well. Now, one of my first things that I always recommend to anybody who is suffering from insomnia is daily moderate exercise. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and join a gym, do CrossFit, or do anything that you're uncomfortable with, but even if you just have 20 minutes to go for a walk, go for a swim, do a bit of yoga, Pilates, go for a bike ride, play a team sport with somebody, whatever it is, go and throw a frisbee for 20 minutes with a friend, skip rope, hula hoop. I can't hula hoop at all, but there's so many different options that you can do. If you keep it at a nice moderate level, you're helping to regulate your blood sugar, you're helping to break down cortisol, which is one of the biggest things, because I keep bringing it back to this. Your cortisol levels, you want to reduce them, and exercise is one of the best ways to do it. I know within myself, if I don't exercise, then I won't sleep very well that night. Sometimes I might get away with a day, but if it comes to 2-3 days, I will already have insomnia straight away. It doesn't take very long before the insomnia will set in. And so exercise is one of those important things. It is a good thing that you can do in the moment as well, which I know sounds really strange, but I'll talk about this a little bit later. Generally, if you've got insomnia, and especially when you're pregnant, it is very easy to go, I'm pregnant, I'm tired, I'm not going to exercise today. It's really important that no matter what's going on, at least 4 to 5 days a week, that you get some exercise for 20 minutes a day. Ideally, it would be every day, but I don't expect that to happen every single day. But there's so many benefits to exercise, not just for your sleep, but we will talk about that in other episodes. Now this one, I think most people are aware of this, but it is very insidious and very easy to get in a bad habit with, and that is technology. Now, one of the things with technology that really, really messes with our sleep is when we're using it before bed, or even like lying in bed, or even when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're feeling really, really awake and you pick up your phone and start going on social media. One of the reasons why technology can be a really negative thing when it comes to our sleep is because a lot of the screens that we're using, whether it be our phone, tablet, computer, TV, whatever it is, if you've got a screen in front of your face, it's using white light in order to work. And that white light works the same way to our brain as sunlight. The reason why this is a concern is because cortisol is stimulated by sunlight first thing in the morning, and that's why we wake up, right? So when we're having white light, it stimulates our brains the same way that sunlight does, and so our cortisol levels rise, and that makes it harder to go to sleep because it is suppressing melatonin. So it's a very simple reason, and there's heaps that you can do about it. So you can set limits. I know that there's new social media limit things on the iPhone on the newest update. I'm still trying to figure out how to work that. My personal preference for this is I put my phone on airplane mode, on silent, on the other side of the bedroom, and I let it charge over there and I don't think about it. If you feel like you need your phone on just in case somebody needs to contact you, then you can always have it on silent, and you can put it on like a a social media do not disturb mode, so that only phone calls will come through and text messages will come through. So you can, there are features now so that you can avoid certain stimulants so that it is there. But I definitely would recommend avoiding technology about half an hour before you go to bed. And treating your bedroom as a bedroom is really important as well. So you want to make sure that, any technology that you use, you kind of stop using when you go into your bedroom. And by that I mean, like, watching TV in bed is a terrible habit when it comes to sleep and insomnia, and using your phone in bed, using a computer in bed, checking your emails till crazy times at night. None of that is going to help your sleep. So avoiding all of that as much as possible is really, really important. Now let's talk about some positive things instead of making you feel like you're doing the wrong thing all the time. Remember that all of this it's practice, and it's figuring out what works for you and what doesn't, but creating a routine, a nighttime routine, we call this sleep hygiene in the natural medicine world. That is such a great way to improve your sleep maintenance throughout the night. So I want to talk about that a little bit. About 30 minutes before you plan on going to bed, you want to start your nighttime routine or your bedtime routine. So, it might include kids. I'm not sure what time you go to bed, but generally what you want to make sure is that, you've brushed your teeth, any supplements that you have to take and stuff like that, medications, you've taken all of that. You put your phone on airplane mode or whatever, like I was talking about with the technology. And then you start to create an environment that is conducive to healthy sleep. So anything that's going to stimulate melatonin is what you're going to be doing in this time. Even if all you can do is spare 15 minutes, there's a few really simple things that you can do to improve that melatonin production. So first of all, instead of those white lights that I was talking about, you can light candles or have lamps. You want yellow lights because they don't stimulate the brain the same way as white light does. You can do a whole host of different activities. So you can do a yin yoga if you want. There's plenty on YouTube that you can find. You could have an Epsom salt bath, which is quite relaxing. Epsom salts have magnesium in them, so it's a nice way to get a little bit of extra magnesium into the body as well. You can burn some essential oils if you're into that. You can have a sleepy tea. Now, sleepy teas I'm a huge fan of because teas are such a nice, gentle way to get herbs in, and they're definitely something that you can use throughout pregnancy, and they're not a negative thing. When it comes to herbs, some of the best ones for sleep are things like chamomile and lavender, which most people know, but valerian is probably one of the strongest ones. It's a really sedative herb. Hops, passion flower, and lemon balm. They're all beautiful, relaxing herbs. Some of them are adaptogens, which basically mean they help with your stress response, and others are sedative herbs, like I said with the valerian. Holy basil or tulsi is another really beautiful herb. It's adaptogenic. It is not at all sedative, so you can have it throughout the day, but if you want to manage your stress with that or just have a nice sleepy tea, you can get a blend that has the tulsi / holy basil and other herbs in it, or you could just have the tulsi on its own. So having a cup of tea like that and creating a nice little ritual, that can be really beneficial to help you go to sleep. Of course, if you're pregnant, you don't want to drink too much water before you go to bed. You can still do it within, an hour or two before you go to bed, but it is a really nice thing to utilize. Another thing that I personally find really beneficial when I'm going to sleep is that I will do a meditation. Now, in truth, I use my phone in order to do this meditation, but when I do it, I personally keep my phone on the lowest setting of the light anyway most of the time. It drives my husband crazy, but I don't like that bright light so much, and I especially not at night. So I always have my phone screen quite dark, and I have an app on my phone which I will use to go to sleep. It's called Meditation Oasis Relax and Rest, and I have been using this app successfully for over 6 years. It is the app that basically saved my life that second time when I had incredibly horrendous insomnia, and I would listen to this app over and over and over and over again, maybe 5 or 6 times in the beginning, but that would be getting me to sleep within a couple of hours, as opposed to the 6 or 7 hours I would lie awake without it. So to me, 2 hours of listening to this on repeat was a much more beneficial thing. And ask any of my clients or anybody who's been following me for a while. That is the app that I always recommend, because it has worked for me for so long and I still go to it. However, I will talk about this in a moment, but in pregnancy lately, it hasn't been working for me so much because I'm doing hypnobirthing and I have other tracks that I listen to. And the other day I tried to use this relax and rest and I was like, nah, I need my hypnobirthing track. So I think I'm just in that mindset now where I'm like preparing myself for birth, and hypnobirthing is, you know, what I'm listening to, the self-hypnosis with that. But it's definitely worth a try if you don't do hypnobirthing. Of course, one of the biggest things with sleep, insomnia, and managing those hormones, melatonin and cortisol, that are associated with sleep and insomnia is stress management, which I talk about a lot with my clients as well. We are all stressed. Even if you don't particularly feel stressed, there is always some sort of stress going on. We live in a very stimulating society, so that in itself is stressful. Things that you eat can be stressful to the body. The way that you exercise or don't exercise can be stressful to the body. Different conditions you have can cause stress to the body, because inflammation. But in general, while you're pregnant, it can be an incredibly stressful time because, like I said, there are so many changes going on with your body. Like, you'll just look down one day and go, oh God, didn't realize that was happening. Like, I've got some furry patch on my chin or on my jawline that I did not expect to grow, and it's really furry, like teddy bear furry. It's super weird. But anyway, so there's things like that. There's the preparing for birth, and especially if you're not doing hypnobirthing, you know, the idea of birth might be stressful, or you've had another birth and that was traumatic, that can be stressful. Expectations of other family members and partners, that can be quite stressful as well. So there's a lot of different aspects to this. And then, of course, especially if you've never had a baby before, and you haven't been around children at all, the idea of being a parent can be quite stressful. You want to wrap up things that you're working on and all of that before the baby comes. You want to make sure that the baby has a nice room, and your brain is going a million miles an hour. There's so many things to talk about and think about. So I would not be surprised if you have some stress going on, and I haven't met a single person ever that doesn't have some sort of stress going on. Whether or not they manage it well is a totally different story, but this is why stress management is a key factor in preventing insomnia. Now, when it comes to stress management, what I'm talking about is not necessarily that I expect you to eliminate stress in all of your life, because that is not realistic. And like I said, the modern world is very, very stressful. It's all about how you manage that stress, how you not only de-stress from the day, but also the things that you do in order to prevent stress, or, you know, to set yourself up so that your day isn't as stressful as it could be. I find writing lists, I love to write a list every day of all of the things that I want to achieve for the day. I like to do little tick boxes so I can tick things off, and I find that really effective for me. And I like to do that sometimes if I'm particularly wired before I'm going to bed. I will actually sit down and I'll either write a list just on a piece of paper, or I'll write it in my diary for the day. So tomorrow I know exactly all of the things that I need to get done, and that way it can stop those circling thoughts that occur when you're going to sleep. Because if you're anything like me, when you're anxious, that is what happens. Your brain's like, don't forget this, don't forget this, don't forget this, don't forget this. And you're just sitting there just going, kill me. I know, I won't forget, but I might forget, and oh God, what if I forget? Another thing that I like to suggest with those circling thoughts as well is to actually have a piece of paper or a notepad and a pen and have it beside the bed. So write down your list before you go to bed, and then if you have any circling thoughts that occur either while you're trying to get to sleep or if you wake up in the middle of the night, you can actually go, okay, that's fine, I'll write it down, and the paper can remember it, and that way you don't have to think about remembering it anymore because you know that you've written it down. And if you have any other ones pop up, you just write it down. And if it's in the dark and it's messy, who cares? As long as you're writing it down, you're going to understand what it means. Sometimes you might write some weird stuff. That does happen every now and then. Try not to be so attached to that process, but just have it there as something to do just to stop those circling thoughts. Journaling can also be another technique along those lines. I personally haven't found a technique for journaling that always works for me. I do it very occasionally. It's not something that I do every day, but some people really love to do it. Some people like to think of a particular affirmation or mantra or something and journal around that, or be grateful and write all the things that they're grateful for, and that can be quite effective as well. You might find, like me, that different techniques work on different days depending on how you're going. But like I said, don't be too attached to the process. It's okay if your night routine doesn't look exactly the same every single night. Meditation is a really good way to help you sleep, but it's also a really good way to manage your stress as well. So first thing in the morning you can meditate, and I like to do, especially while you're pregnant, I find it really nice. I actually, and I can link it in the thing below, but there is a meditation in particular that I love to do first thing in the morning, and it's a positive birth affirmation meditation. And literally I just lie there, put my hands on my belly and breathe and listen to the affirmations, and I repeat them in my head sometimes, and just think about my baby and think about my birth and the life that I'm going to have once my baby's born. And it makes me feel so good first thing in the morning, and I feel really relaxed, and it's just such a really positive way to start the day. So I highly recommend doing that. But if that's not your style, or you can just do regular meditation first thing in the morning, I would recommend trying to do it for about 10 minutes. And the other thing with meditation is, if you have thoughts come up, it doesn't mean that you're bad at meditation, because everyone has thoughts coming up. It's about how long it takes you to, let go of those thoughts. And some days you're going to be good at letting go of the thoughts, and some days you're not. Some days those thoughts will stay there and you'll get lost in a trail of that particular thought, and that is totally okay. There is no prize for being great at meditation, because it's all in the practice. It is a practice. It's not supposed to be something that you perfect and get good at, because even the Dalai Lama says that you can't silence your mind, even if you spent a whole year on a mountain. I think I'm sure there's a quote about it. I know I've read something, but the Dalai Lama can't even do it, so I don't expect you to. The last thing when it comes to stress management that I wanted to talk about, it's something that I've noticed as being part of a couple of different mums groups in Facebook, and that is that there are certain people who, and I'm not judging anybody by saying this, but I have noticed that a lot of people will get very frustrated at their partners or family members and that sort of thing, and they air their frustration in these groups because obviously they feel safe to do that, and that's perfectly fine. But a lot of the times they're just kind of expecting these people in their life to know what they're thinking or what they're wanting, or that person in their life has done something that they're not necessarily happy with, but they're not communicating with them. And I think it's a really, really important aspect of being in any relationship, whether that's a friend relationship, a family member, a partner, that you can communicate honestly with one another. And it's not about sitting there saying, you did this and I feel like this because of you, and using accusatory tones. It's just actually communicating what's bothering you. So if you have a partner that's not contributing to the housework, instead of saying I'm so tired and I'm so pregnant, why don't you do this, blah, 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 just say, hey, it would really mean a lot to me if you could help me with the dishes without me having to ask you, that I understand that you are working really hard and I appreciate that, but I'm a bit tired today. Could you please help me with this. And by communicating how you're feeling and doing it from a place of non-judgment and not expecting them to explode and not expecting the worst of them, you know, sometimes we all forget, we get in our minds and we forget that other people have stuff going on. You know, even if you're in a relationship with somebody, you can forget that, you know, their brain might be going a million miles an hour and they might be stressed about a whole bunch of different things. So I really, really want to reiterate how important it is to communicate with the people in your life. And I know that there are some relationships which are harder if you don't get along with your in-laws and that sort of thing, but I really like to come from a place of non-judgment no matter what relationship it is, and always to try to see it from their perspective, because I really wholeheartedly believe that people aren't out to get us. It's just our minds that make us feel like people are kind of out to get us. And it's very easy, especially in our society, I believe, to have a little bit of a victim mentality. And that's simply just like, you know, everything's happening to me, not for me. Like, I'm too busy, I'm too tired, I'm too poor, I'm this, I'm that, life's too hard, you know, nothing works for me. That sort of mentality is what I'm kind of talking about. I'm trying to articulate this fairly quickly, so I'm sorry if this doesn't make sense, and I honestly, I'm not coming from a place of judgment here. I do this myself. This is why I can talk about this from such an honest level, is because I know that I do this, and I have to really try to bring myself back sometimes and go, oh, hang on a second, Miranda, that was a really unfair thing to say. You know, and just bring it back. Or if I notice myself getting really offended by somebody's behavior, I really think about it, just go, hang on a second, like, maybe they don't necessarily mean anything by it. Like, you know, think about from their perspective. And I sort of coach myself into doing that, because I really believe that if we can do that and communicate with one another in that manner, it's going to make life just a lot less stressful, because at least you're being honest, you're getting it out there, you're not you know, assuming the worst of everyone. It makes life a lot easier and a lot more positive when you don't assume the worst of people in your life as well. So I will say that it's just really important not to bottle up your feelings, and because that always ends up in an argument. You end up exploding eventually, you know, and it can cause a really big fight in whatever relationship it is, whether it's a sister or a mother or a husband or partner of some sort. You know, just keep all of that sort of stuff in mind. So next time you're feeling stressed about something that somebody else is doing, just try to see it from their perspective and talk to them in a calm manner, and just, yeah, I don't know how else to say it, and please know that I am not perfect at this, but I do my best, and I think it's really important that we all do our best when it comes to this sort of communication. Alright, so now for my tips for in the moment, the things that you can do when you are lying awake and you cannot sleep. And this is mostly meant for those moments when you you know, wake up in the middle of the night and can't sleep. And like I said, all of this information, it can definitely be transferred to somebody who is not pregnant, but I want to keep the pregnancy in mind, because I feel like, especially experiencing it myself, that pregnancy insomnia is a little bit different, and just in that it just kind of pops up out of nowhere sometimes. First thing is, if you wake up and you need to pee, don't just lie there hoping that it's going to go away, because it's not, and you know it's not. You have a tiny little bladder with a baby sitting on it. And the funniest thing with that whole needing to pee thing, I find, is that, like, it comes on straight away. Like, you're in first trimester and your baby isn't that big, it's like a little cluster of cells, and all of a sudden you're like, I need to pee 1,000 times a night, this is ridiculous, right? At least that's what happened to me, and I was really frustrated because I was expecting it to not happen until the final trimester. And I had it, you know, I actually had a nice break in the middle in my second trimester where I didn't need to pee during the night. It was heaven. Not gonna lie, it was lovely, but it's come back, you know, 31 weeks now, so but anyway, if you do wake up and you need to pee, whether or not you're pregnant, but you know, if you're pregnant, just get up and pee. But what I do when I get up and pee is I don't turn on any lights at all. I go pee in the dark. Your eyes are fairly adjusted to the dark at that point anyway, so unless you have like block out curtains and your house is pitch black, you should be fine to get around. And if not, maybe install one of those night lights, or just get a touch night light that's battery powered or something that has a warmer tone to it. And then that way you have some light, but it's not too much. It's not going to overstimulate you, and you can go back to bed. Another thing that I love to do is I actually wear an eye mask, because I need pitch black. I need to just be in the zone when it comes to sleep. So I do recommend having an eye mask. I was going to say an eye patch, but no, an eye mask. Pregnancy brain. I do recommend having an eye mask to help you get to sleep as well. Really, really important. Writing down your thoughts. Like I said, when you're, lying awake and you're having those thoughts, let the paper remember them. But if you wake up in the night and you have these thoughts and you just cannot let go of them, it can be good to write those down. Having said that, however, in my own experience, I'm finding that every now and then when I do have some thoughts are things that I really do need to process. And even though it is frustrating that it is 3 o'clock in the morning when my brain chooses to process them, I kind of embrace it in a way and allow myself to, and that will eventually, it might take about an hour, but eventually I do fall asleep sometimes. Like, I can write it down and nothing changes. So if I sit there and just go, okay, let's just go through this, and I find that I do get a lot of things processed. I am, of course, tired during the day the next day, but sometimes it's just worth, instead of fighting it, just embracing it, and you might find that you do fall asleep a lot quicker than you think. So, but if it is particularly stressful, write it down if you need to, but definitely don't pick up your phone and go on social media. That is not going to help. It's very stimulating. You're going to get stuck scrolling, and the bright lights, of course, aren't good, the white lights. If you really need to talk, if you've got a partner or somebody that you know that you can call who doesn't mind being called at a crazy hour, definitely do that. But yeah, for the most part, I don't know, I think it's something about pregnancy. There's a lot of emotional, spiritual changes going on. Sometimes it can be just really beneficial to work through that and then fall asleep. Another thing that I find really helpful, again, is that meditation. So you can use that app that I mentioned, or I'm finding Hypnobirthing, really, like the Hypnobirthing tracks, I guess you would call them. I'm finding those really helpful for me at the moment. They just put me into a different sort of relaxation quicker. And I think it's just because of my mindset as well. I'm so pregnancy, birth minded right now. I can't really help it. That's what I'm interested in. That's what I'm focusing on. And I just really do find that really, really helpful. So I have those tracks. I actually did a hypnobirthing course. So I have the tracks because as part of the course you get given them, but there are plenty on YouTube and that sort of thing. You can bookmark them. I think you can buy some on iTunes if you want. The Australian hypnobirthing ones, I'm pretty sure, are available on iTunes, or at least on their website as an MP3 download. And just having those bookmarked so that you can easily listen to that, whether or not it's with headphones or just as is. I really find that beneficial, and I think it's really good for your mindset, especially if you're feeling quite apprehensive about birth. And you can listen to the positive affirmations if you want, or you can listen to the visualizations. There's so many different ones when it comes to hypnobirthing, but I find, especially in the middle of the night, the hypnobirthing tracks are what I have to use in order to get to sleep, and they work really fast for me. So that's what I've been finding. And the last thing is to use up that nervous energy. If you're really feeling like really anxious and really awake, and you just feel like you have that nervous energy and you could easily just like go for a run or something, that sort of hyperactivity, use that energy as quickly as you can. So that might be doing some squats, or doing some push-ups against the wall, or, you know, doing a few stretches, whatever it might be, it will help to break down the cortisol that you've got going on in your body. And, you know, you can easily like slip out of your room if you've got a partner that you sleep with, and do some of these exercises in a way that doesn't wake anybody up, and nobody can judge you because they're asleep. But I highly recommend definitely doing that if you're feeling like, oh, I just need to do something. It is a really, really effective way just to physically channel that energy into something and let it go. Now, if none of these things are working for you, there's definitely different things that you can do, different modalities that you can reach out to. Acupuncture and chiropractic can be really, really helpful for insomnia. I know it doesn't sound like a physical thing, but when it comes to acupuncture and chiropractic, they actually have other applications than just, you know, fixing you when you're sore. So it's definitely worth investigating those things, and they can help you throughout your pregnancy anyway to, you know, get your pelvis in alignment and help setting you up for birth and that sort of thing. But it's definitely worth looking at that, and also going to see a naturopath or a nutritional medicine practitioner like myself, so that you can get something that's more personalized for you. So do keep those things in mind. It's always really important to get a second opinion, and you don't have to rely on medications in order to get to sleep properly. They aren't as effective, they aren't giving you a healthier sleep, and they have a lot of nasty side effects and ramifications that can actually cause really negative ramifications throughout the body. So it's really, really important to just seek out all the alternatives that you can. Oh, another thing that I love to do when I'm feeling particularly stressed is I use essential oils, and I actually put them on the underside of my pillow. So things like lavender. I like getting blends usually. Like, I'm not a huge expert when it comes to essential oils. I do love lavender oil. I think it's great. But, you know, I use different blends either from like Perfect Potion or Oil Garden Aromatherapy, which are available at most health food stores, and they have a few blends. And I mean, most companies will have a sleepy blend or a relaxing blend, which I find really good. And I literally, you can either put it in a diffuser or you can put it on the underside of your pillow. You don't want to put it on the, you know, the one that your face goes on, but if you put it on the underside of your pillow, it won't stay in the pillowcase, and you get that beautiful scent, and that can really help you get to sleep as well. So the thing that I love about all of these techniques and strategies is that not only are they going to help you to get to sleep, help you to manage your stress, help you to have a healthy pregnancy, they can also really help with birth. So one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that stress can really make the birthing process really hard. And like I said, stress creates cortisol, and the more cortisol that you've got running around, especially in the lead up to your birth, the less oxytocin that you're going to produce. And you need a lot of oxytocin for birth. Your body has a positive feedback mechanism, and you're going to be producing that anyway, but you want to give it the best fighting chance that it can. And the other thing is that stress will actually interrupt that birthing process. So while you're in labor, if you get stressed, panicked, all of that sort of stuff, it will shut down some of the functioning, because your body will be thinking, oh no, there's something dangerous happening, let's stop this birth from happening. And that's when you get a lot of the pain. So we really want to make sure that we are, you know, just working with the body as much as we possibly can. And by doing a lot of these strategies, you're going to have a much better chance of having a less painful birth. And especially if you're doing the hypnobirthing, that will definitely help as well. But I highly recommend at least, you know, trying to manage your stress as best as you can. The other thing is that stress has been shown to have an effect on babies, their IQ and their development in general. And I don't say that in a way as like, you shouldn't be stressed, how dare you, naughty mum sort of thing or anything. I don't want you to feel guilt, because we live, like I said, we live in a very stressful environment, a very stressful society, and it is normal to feel stressed, but it is what you do about that stress that matters. And if you are the sort of person who is working on managing your stress, your baby is going to have a much better chance, and so are you. It's really important just to remember that stress can impact the health of your baby, but I don't want you, like I said, I don't want you to feel guilty about it. It's not me brandishing you with the bad mum thing or anything. I don't do that. We all are doing the best that we possibly can, and if we're actively seeking different ways to manage our stress, like, that is brilliant. That is a really great way to live your life, I believe. So I want to congratulate you for at least watching this video. I'm sure that you've learnt something. If you have, I'd love to know what that is. I'd love to know what you've gotten out of this, and if you do have any pregnancy questions, any health pregnancy questions that you'd like me to answer, please feel free to write them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, share it with your friends, and I hope that you have a really good night's sleep tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. And obviously, green leafy vegetables. This is why I keep moving like forward and back. The sun is chasing me.